Hello, hello, and welcome back to yet another draft video. So today we got the mock draft part 8, I believe, number 8 already. How many more? If I could do the math in my head, eventually I'm gonna switch from every 2 weeks to every week. I don't know when I'm gonna do that though. Maybe once the season's over, so a couple weeks from now. I don't know. I gotta start doing the 2 round mock drafts eventually, but I don't know that much about like that many prospects to include, 60 some picks. And also that video would be hella long. But anyways, I got some more ideas coming forward. But this is the mock draft part 8. We have 30 out of 32 picks officially locked in. So let's get right into it, man. Thank you for watching. So starting off with the Titans at the number 1 overall pick. Listen, I said it in the last video how we're going to get all these damn reports about what the Titans do and don't want to do, what they're thinking, what way they're leaning. The fact of the matter is, I can personally guarantee you they've already made their decision. I wholeheartedly believe this. There has to be some sort of a secret rule in place at the NFL where if you're the number 1 overall pick, like if you're a team that has the number 1 pick, you are not allowed to tell people, at least publicly, what you're going to do so they can like make it interesting. Because, like, brother, like you cannot convince me that the Titans have not already made their decision weeks ago about what quarterback they're going to take. And I've seen some reports that have the nerve to insult my intelligence to try and be like, well, the Titans are going to roll with Will Levis. They're thinking about not even drafting a quarterback. Brother, they I'm baffled with the state. You do not bench Will Levis for Mason Rudolph multiple times in a season and then choose him over Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders. It just doesn't happen. I've said it before, I'll say it again. This is not a great quarterback class. Even the guys that we thought would like the X factors that you take a shot on, Jalen Milrow has completely fallen off. There's only 2 guys who I think are going to go in the top 50 at this point in time. But here's the thing off the top of my head, let's think back recently to guys who were not drafted so highly, but have performed and exceeded above all expectations. Jalen Hurts was not even a first round pick. He did not have a lot of tools. Not a lot of people believed in him. But the Eagles surrounded him with a lot of talent, and he's taken them to multiple Super Bowls. Josh Allen, he was not a top 10 pick. A lot of people were not very high on him. He was seen as a project. The Bills put a lot of talent around him. He developed, and now look at where the Bills are. It is just, and then let's think about this, right? Because there are some teams and some people who think, well, you don't draft a quarterback that high unless it's a generational talent. Let's think about some of the recent generational talent picks at quarterback. Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. What the hell has he done in 3 or 4 years? The Jaguars are literally in the same position pretty much as when they got him. You got Kyler Murray on the Cardinals. I would consider him to be at least some people are calling him a generational prospect. He has never won a playoff game in like 5, 6 seasons, however long it's been. So it is a complete crapshoot. There are no guarantees. All you can do is draft a guy. I think Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders are both talented enough. I said it a while ago. I got a mid first round grade on both these guys. They both have their problems, but I think if you give them the pieces that they deserve, and if you make good decisions as a team, they will be successful quarterbacks in the NFL. And I thoroughly believe that. So, with the first overall pick, the Titans, I'm going to say they draft Cam Ward. I don't know if anything will change my mind on them drafting Cam Ward. I mean, I do think he's better than Shadur Sanders. I think his upside's a little higher than Shadur Sanders. And the Titans, man, what do they have going for them? I mean, I like their running back duo, to be honest with you. I mean, Tajay Spears, Tony Pollard, I think is a little underrated. I wish they would get Tajay Spears the ball a little bit more. Um, Calvin Ridley, who knows how long he'll be there. Nick Westbrook, Akine, I just don't love their receivers whatsoever. The whole offense, the defense was massively disappointing. It's a terrible situation, don't get me wrong. What they need a franchise quarterback. So Cam Ward, number 1 overall. The Browns at number 2. I am less confident in the Browns taking a quarterback at this spot just because they have shown that they make the worst decisions in football. But it's like, brother, even if even if the Browns owner is so delusional that he thinks Deshaun Watson is still the answer, he had a setback with his Achilles rehab. So he is now like confirmed to miss the entirety of next season. So unless you go out and get a guy like Joe Flacco or something and I've said it before, I'll say it again. Go ahead and just trade Miles Garrett, trade like any veteran player that has any sort of value because you are incapable of winning anything in the next 2 years if you're the Cleveland Browns. They are handicapped in terms of what they can accomplish. So just draft your quarterback, gut the roster, and start completely over. And once Deshaun's contract is up, then maybe you can start doing something. Give me Shedeur Sanders at number 2 overall. I do not love it. I think he'll struggle behind that terrible Browns offensive line, but they don't have many other options. What are you going to draft? If they don't draft Shedeur, what are you going to draft an offensive lineman and have James? Are you going to have Jameis play quarterback again? It's just there's not enough options for the Browns. So Shedeur, Shedeur Sanders at number 2. It's going to be really depressing for Cam Ward and Shedeur if they go number 1 and number 2. It's just some bad situations right now. Speaking of bad situations, you got the Giants now, desperately in need of a quarterback, maybe more so than any other team. But now there are no options at number 3. If you're the Giants here, you got to go after guys like Sam Darnold, Justin Fields, Kirk Cousins, JJ McCarthy, maybe even I don't even know who else, but you got to do something if you're the Giants at quarterback. So if you don't draft a quarterback, what do you do if you're the Giants? My opinion would be best player available. The best player in the entire draft is Travis Hunter. I think if for the Giants situation, he probably plays the majority of snaps on defense, which I think is the smart move. I think he plays about 70 to 75% of his snaps as a starting boundary corner, maybe even more than that. And then he plays, 10 to 15 snaps per game as a receiver. If you still are of the belief that guys can't play both sides of the NFL, you're delusional. Travis will absolutely play receiver and cornerback because the Giants need help at receiver too. I mean, Darius Slayton probably is going to be gone in free agency. Wandell Robertson averages like 6 yards per catch. They have given up on Jalen Hyatt apparently for some reason. So Travis Hunter and Malik Neighbors, pretty good wide receiver combination. And then on defense, him and was it Andrew Phillips? I think had a really good rookie season for them. So they just need help. It would be upgrades at receiver and a massive upgrade at cornerback for them. Patriots at 4. The every single mock draft I do for the Patriots, it's going to come down to receiver or offensive lineman. In the last draft, I gave them Will Campbell, which I think it's a good decision. I can't be mad at them taking Will Campbell, but I think the potential upside of drafting a number 1 receiver in Tedoroa McMillan is something that I don't think you can pass up on. I'm sure they'll make moves to try and get guys like what's his name, like T. Higgins from Cincinnati. Maybe they try to trade for like a DK Metcalf or something like that. But if they can't get a big name receiver through free agency, I think drafting Tyrell McMillan would be a great option for them. And they would have an amazing young. If they draft Tyrell McMillan, they would have him, Kayshon Boutte, Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, um, Javon Baker. They'd have a bunch of young, talented receivers then. Jaguars at number 5 here. You know, I've given them Will Johnson a lot to improve their secondary. I've given them Mason Graham at times to make their defensive line dominant. But let's give them an offensive lineman, the best offensive lineman in the entire draft, in my opinion, Will Campbell. Try and protect Trevor Lawrence. Who did they hire? They hired Liam Cohen recently as their head coach. Try and make this offense a little more consistent, improve the run game, which they desperately need. Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne should be, or Trevor Etienne. I don't know. I think it's Trevor Etienne. They should be a really good combination if both healthy. So maybe if Trevor Lawrence comes back healthy, they can have a really good offense again. Raiders at 6. Raiders, just like the Giants, man, completely stuck. You desperately need quarterback. I could see the Raiders, honestly, moving up to number 2 overall. I might explore that in the future. Them trading up with the Browns to try and get Shedeur or Cam Ward. I could really see that. But if they stick at number 6, they recently hired Pete Carroll, by the way, oldest head coach ever, I think. Um, so Raiders number 6. What do you do here? I mean, honestly, the move has to be getting a quarterback through free agency, whether that's Kirk Cousins, like I said, Justin Fields, I think could be exciting for them. Whoever the Vikings don't want between McCarthy, Sam Darnold. I think even bringing a guy like Derek Carr back from the Saints. If the Saints want to move on, I think Carr on the Raiders, I think it'd be a massive upgrade. So there's a lot of things they could do at quarterback, not, including the draft. So let's just take the player who would have the biggest impact on the franchise day one, and that's Ashton Jeanty. I absolutely have no problem with him going in the top 5 or 6. I think he's just that talented. And the Raiders, by the way, they have the worst running back room in the NFL. I mean, they had like 3 or 4 different guys start for them this season, and none of them were very good. So yeah, Ashton Jeanty would come in and he would get at least, in my opinion, 325, 350 touches year one, and he might have an all-time caliber rookie season. I wholeheartedly believe I would give him if I was the Raiders and I drafted Ashton Jeanty, I'd give him 350 touches. And if that's the case, he could easily break 2,000 yards in scrimmage. Who knows how many touchdowns? The Jets at number 7 here. You know, I've given them Mason Graham a lot, and it's not a bad pick. I think it's the best they could do here. Who knows? The Jets are just man. I would be very depressed if I'm a Jets fan. They haven't even hired a new coach, have they? I mean, who would want to coach for the Jets? I'm gonna give them Will Johnson because I think DJ Reed is going to be leaving via free agency, which would leave a hole next to Sauce Gardner. I think drafting Will Johnson could give them possibly the best young cornerback duo in the NFL. The Panthers are number 8. I've said over and over again, I think the number one goal for the Panthers has to be adding receiver talent to this team. But Tedero McMillan's off the board, Travis Hunter's off the board, Luther Burden certainly would be an option here, but Abdul Carter, the more I hear, he is the consensus best defensive player in the entire class, the most upside, game-changing talent. So let's give Abdul Carter to the Panthers. And by the way, they're the worst defense in football. It's not even close. They're the worst defense in football. So they desperately need help. So Abdul Carter potentially being the next Micah Parsons for them. Saints at number 9. Man, it really makes me realize how many teams are just in terrible situations. The Saints are another one of them. Um, Quarterback's not an option. There's a lot of things they need for the defense, a lot of guys getting old that I think they should get rid of. But if you know the Saints, you know that their receiving core this season was a complete disaster. Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed both got hurt and didn't play at all the second half of the season. So their receiving room by the end of the year, let me try and name their receivers for you. Their starting receivers by the end of the year, I think, was Chris, or Chris Austin or Calvin, not Calvin Austin something Kevin Austin, Marquez Valdez Scantling, and Dante Pettis. I don't think any of those guys were on the roster to start the season. So it was all bad for the Saints by the end. Let me give them a receiver here, Luther Burden. He is really being slept on in this class, and not a lot of people are talking about him, but I would be shocked if he fell outside the top 12. There's just too many teams who I think should and could draft him. The Bears at number 10, I refuse to consider anything besides offensive line for the Bears. Protecting Caleb has to be the number one priority. They already have the receivers, they have the quarterback. Get him some protection. Josh Simmons, I struggle with who's going to be the number one tackle off the board here. I think Josh Simmons, he has a really good case, obviously. He missed pretty much the entire second half of the season due to injury, but the Bears have massive issues at tackle. Bring Josh Simmons in, see if he can start right away. Niners at number 11. I've done a few things with the Niners as well. I'm going to give them a tackle as well. I think Kelvin Banks sitting right here at number 11 is too good to pass up on. He could start right away at right tackle, and then eventually when Trent Williams is no longer there, he could probably make that transition over to the left tackle position. I think that's just the most obvious pick there for the Niners at number 11. The Cowboys at 12. So many things the Cowboys could do. I mean, you could probably name 10 or 11 different players that they could draft here, and all of them would be realistic. I mean, there's a lot of avenues that they could explore here. What I'm going to do, though, listen, I think it's fair to say that Mozzie Smith a couple years ago was a swing and a miss for them in the draft. And I also think they're going to lose Osa Zigizua to free agency this year. So that's a bust of one defensive tackle, and you're going to lose another defensive tackle. And Mason Graham sitting right there, this is kind of a no-brainer for me. I think they've been trying to fix the interior of that defensive line for a while, and now you got a stud sitting right there. So Mason Graham to the Cowboys. I don't think it's a massive need right now, but I think a couple months from now you're going to look at be like, oh wait, who is going to be our starting defensive tackle right there? So Mason Graham, I like that for them. He could wreak some havoc alongside Micah Parsons and Demarcus Lawrence. Dolphins at 13. Last time I mentioned how Javon Holland probably is going to be leaving through free agency, which leaves a massive hole in the safety position. And you got Malachi Starks sitting right there. It's a similar thing with the Cowboys. You're going to lose a guy to free agency, and you got an easy replacement staring you right in the face. Easy upgrade, actually, in both situations. Well, calling Malachi Starks an upgrade over Javon Holland, that's a little high praise. Javon Holland has been really good for the Dolphins, actually. But Malachi Starks, I do think Malachi Starks has a higher ceiling than Javon Holland. So Malachi Starks to the Dolphins with the number 13th pick. Colts at 14. Honestly, these are one of those teams where they really do have a lot of options. I think cornerback is on the table, defensive line certainly, but brother, what if they don't just draft a tight end to make AR Richardson AR Anthony Richardson's job a little bit easier, man? They just don't have good tight ends on the Colts. And if you got a quarterback who struggles to make decisions, struggles to get the ball out quickly, and struggles to throw the ball in the short and intermediate areas, is the obvious answer to not get him a tight end that he can throw the ball to quickly. I feel like that's just it's a really simple thing in my head. Maybe NFL teams don't think that way. I'm not sure. But I got Tyler Warren sitting right here, the best tight end in the entire draft, for a team who desperately needs tight end help. Maybe it's too good to be true, but I'm going to go with it anyways. Tyler Warren to the Colts at number 14. The Falcons at number 15 here. I think I've given them an edge rusher or like Jalen Walker, a pass rushing linebacker, in every single mock draft that I've done so far, and that is not going to change. If the Falcons don't draft an edge rusher, I don't know what they're doing. They do not get pressure, and they desperately need to improve their pass rush. So, a a dozen. Let's count the guys that could go in the first round. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, I'd say 11 true edge rushers that could go in the first round here. We've already drafted one in Abdul Carter, so really 12 in total. It's a ridiculous defensive line class. Everybody said that it is the strength of the class. Um, what do they do here at number 15? You know what? I'm gonna give a shout out to a guy who has been shooting up lately. Mike Green led the country in sacks this year at Marshall. He is an absolute freak. And let's just say hypothetically the Falcons take a shot on him. I think it would be a very good, a very underrated pick there at number 15. Cardinals at 16 here. I've tinkered around with different ideas. I've given them interior defensive line because I think that's something that they could address here. I'm going to go with an edge rusher, though. They drafted the guy out of Missouri last year at the end of the first round. He did not have a very impactful rookie season. So I'm not saying it's a bust, but I'm just saying kind of hedge our bets a little bit. Just in case he doesn't pan out the way they want him to, let's give them James Pierce out of Tennessee. His draft stock has fluctuated, even though I thought his play was pretty consistent this season. He is and might be the best edge rusher in the entire SEC, and he was pretty solid in terms of. I didn't really think his play fluctuated too much this season, so I'm pretty confident in him being a top 20 pick. So James Pierce to the Cardinals at number 16. Bengals at number 17 here. So the Bengals are a very interesting team, right? Because you have two massive free agent things you have to decide. Do you want to bring back T. Higgins or Trey Hendrickson? It is my understanding that they cannot bring back both of those guys. So we've addressed the possibility that they let T. Higgins walk and they bring in a receiver. Um, there's also the possibility that they could let him walk, sign a guy like Tyler Boyd, and they don't have to draft a receiver. Or there's the possibility that they could let go of the guy with 35 sacks the last 2 years and Trey Henderson. If they, for some godforsaken reason, decide to do that, let's see what they could do at the defensive line. You got Mykel Williams sitting right there out of Georgia. I think that would be a very good idea to bring him in the door. So let's get Mykel Williams to the Bengals at number 17. My Seahawks at 18. I will not, cannot, should not consider anything besides offensive line for the Seahawks, and I will not do that. So let's take a look at the options here. Um, you got this guy right here, shooting up the draft recently, starting right tackle at Missouri, graded very highly this season. And look at how he played against SEC competition. Very good against South Carolina, who's a great pass rush team. Very good against Mississippi State. Played well against Oklahoma as well. So I'm going to give a shout out to this guy. And if you look at his size, 6'3", not really the traditional size of an outside offensive lineman. So I think it would make sense to draft him, kick him in at guard, which is our biggest need on the offensive line. So yeah, seems like an obvious pick here. Armand Membo to my Seahawks at number 18. Buccaneers at 19. Um, it's going to be either cornerback or edge rusher here. And I'm going to give them Shamar Stewart out of Texas A&M. So many options here, and they've got a lot of guys actually. You got young guys like Vita Vea, not Vita Vea, Kalijah Cansey and Yaya Diaby. You got the established vets like Vita Vea. I think they're missing one more guy to come off the edge. I think Shamar Stewart could be that for them. Broncos at 20. I see Emeka Egbuka sitting right there, and Emeka Egbuka is a very good prospect that will go in the first round. However, I like the Broncos receiving core, man. I like a lot. Um, Cortland Sutton, Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin. I don't want I don't want them to bring in a guy like Ibuka and see one of those young guys kind of get displaced. So I want them instead to bring in a tight end, which they desperately need. And guess what? Yeah, Colston Loveland sitting right there out of Michigan. So Colston Loveland to the Broncos at number 20. I think it makes a lot of sense. Saints number 21. Not the Saints. Steelers at number 21. Listen, this has to be a receiver for me. Their offense, I don't know what happened. In the middle of the season, their offense was looking great. And then all of a sudden, it just fell off a cliff. George Pickens just stopped playing at like in general. Like he just did nothing in certain must-win games down the stretch. So and also they do not attack the middle of the field whatsoever. Everything is outside the numbers. I don't know why. They need a receiver who can open up the middle of the field and Russ can get the ball out quickly too. That screams Emeka Egbuka to me. I don't know about y'all, but that seems like the obvious answer there. The Chargers at number 22. Listen, I agree that their offense played terrible in the playoff game. Justin Herbert played bad. The receivers played bad. The O line played bad. It was a complete disaster all around. However, I think that they have some things to address on the defensive line. Joey Bosa, I don't know what his future is with the team. It would actually make a lot of sense for the Chargers to cut him in terms of saving cap space. Then you got Khalil Mack. Does he retire? Does he come back? Does he leave? Does he stay? Your two best defensive linemen, you don't know what their future is. So that screams to me like I need to draft a defensive lineman to kind of hedge my bets there and just play it safe. Uh, Harbaugh, would he draft the Ohio State national champion Jack Sawyer? I think he would. I think he has a lot of respect for a guy like that. Played against him, knows him well. Jack Sawyer to the Chargers at number 22. Packers at 23 here. A lot of options, really. The Packers, they lost their playoff game to the Eagles, obviously. Their offense was not functioning at all. What do they do here? I think I gave them a receiver last time because of the injury to Christian Watson, and I still think receiver certainly is in play. However, at pick number 23, you got Benjamin Morrison just sitting right there. Cornerback has been a need for them for a while, especially now with Jair Alexander's future up in the air. Benjamin Morrison seems like a great value pick for the Packers right here. Vikings at 24. Stephon Gilmore is on a 1 year deal. I consistently think that cornerback is the biggest problem for the Vikings. So yeah, and their defense, by the way, got cooked against the Rams, and so they're off. I mean, both sides of the ball did not show up in their playoff game. So give me Jahdae Barron to the Vikings at number 24. He was the Thorpe Award winner, I believe so. I mean, he was one of the best cornerbacks in the country last year. Um, Texans at 25. This has to be offensive line. Um, they played well. They beat the Chargers, but against the Chiefs, their offensive line did not come to play. And listen, they were missing Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell. That really wasn't the team that I expected them to be. I had them playing the Chiefs in the playoffs. I had them beating the Chiefs, but I also thought that they'd have two of their three best offensive players. So that was not the case, but it is what it is. Do they need more help at guard or tackle? It's an interesting question. Um, I think Wyatt Milam, he profiles more as an offensive guard, and I think they do need help at guard. Give me Wyatt Milam to the Texans at number 25. And for the Rams, I'm going to give them an offensive tackle. I think keeping Matthew Stafford upright should be the number one priority. Josh Connerly, shooting up draft boards recently, starting left tackle for Oregon. He has been amazing for them, and their offensive line has been great for years in a row now. So give me Josh Connerly to the Rams at number 26. Ravens at 27 here. Maybe I'm in the minority here, but I think the Ravens receiver is a big need, right? Obviously, they did not have Zay Flowers in the game against the Bills, but Mark Andrews was obviously a lot to say about Mark Andrews and how he played in that final game. But it's not just that Zay Flowers didn't play. It's like, listen, Rashad Bateman, by the way, had a breakout season. He was amazing for them, but it's a contract year for him. What do you do with him? Do you re-sign him, let him walk in free agency? You certainly don't want to overpay him for a guy who's only had one really good season. It's a tough situation. So even I mean, regardless, if they let him walk, if they bring him back, I still think their offense would serve well to have a number three guy in there. Give me Matthew Golden. He really shot up draft boards because he was the number one receiver at Texas this year, and he made some big plays throughout the playoffs against some really good competition. So give me Matthew Golden for the Ravens there. Lions at 28. A lot of things they could do here. They could go interior offensive line. They could go cornerback. But I think edge rusher is the number one need here. Aiden Hutchinson, hopefully, will be back completely healthy at the start of next season. But you never want to be too careful here, never too cautious. Let's hedge our bets by taking somebody else. Nick Scorton, who knows if he falls all the way down to number 28. He was amazing this season for A&M. He was really good last year for Purdue as well. So give me Nick Scorton here at number 28. Next up, Commanders had a great playoff run, one of the most shocking seasons of all, of any team really this season in the NFL. They have a lot of holes, right? Their defense got completely manhandled by the Eagles in the NFC Championship. So what do we do here? You could certainly address the defensive line, but I think cornerback. They brought in Marshawn Lattimore. He did not play very well. Benjamin St. Just and what was the other guy's name? I already forgot his name. Emmanuel Forbes. They are both no goes. So you just need help, man. Sanders, so I like. I think he's going to be a good nickel corner. You need a boundary guy, though. Give me Trey Amos out of Ole Miss, I think. Put him next to Marshawn Lattimore, and you have some stability there at the position. Bills just lost in the AFC Championship game. Very close game, obviously, very controversial game there. What do the Bills do here? I think, I don't really think wide receivers that big of a need. I mean, even if you don't bring back Amari Cooper, you still got guys like Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir. I don't think receivers that big of a need. I'm going to address the defense here. I'm going to go defensive line, and I'm not going to go with the run stuffing guy like Kenneth Grant. I'm going to go with the inside guy who can still generate some pass rush. Walter Nolan, I'm really high on him out of Ole Miss. Number one overall player, I think, in the class of 3 or 4 years ago. He is a beast as a interior defensive lineman. Eagles at 31. I do think they will beat the Chiefs. They were, of course, my pick to win the Super Bowl a couple months ago, several months ago. Um, this is really just best player available, to be honest with you. But best player available here and positional value could link up because, unfortunately, N'Kobe Dean tore his patellar tendon, I think is what it was. So I'm not sure if he'll miss all of next season. I hope he doesn't. But in case there is some uncertainty there, is there a more obvious pick than another Georgia linebacker, Jalen Walker to the Eagles? I mean, come on, man. It just makes all the sense in the world, does it not? And then the Chiefs at number 32, like the Eagles, best player available. But, brother, Morion Hampton is sitting right there. Isaiah Pacheco, I don't know what his future is with the Chiefs. He got hurt this year. He has not done much. Kareem Hunt has kind of taken over. It's been a really cool storyline to see him return and play so well. But he is not obviously in the future plans, I don't think. Give me a Marion Hampton out of UNC. That's going to be it for this video, man. Mock draft part 8. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new. Take a final look here at the overall completed draft. That's going to be it for this video, man. I will see you on the next one. Peace.